This is Gary Green from The Gary Green Show. We're going to be talking about vaping today, but not as a review video or anything like that. We're talking about regulation. I'm going to share this on every one of my sites, and I would ask that you do the same. Get it out to as many people as you can. Let's keep this ball rolling. So, what's with the vaping thing that's going on right now? Why are people suddenly up in a fuss about vaping? I've been trying to figure this out. I've been reading a lot of articles, kind of trying to get a feel. And then I talked to some of my anti-vaping friends. Yes, I actually have anti-vaping friends, even though I vape. Here's my take on how this whole thing works, right? So there are people that don't like certain things, right? Like, people don't like drinking, so they don't hang out with people that drink, right? They also don't drink. But then there's this third thing that they do, or don't do, depending on how you look at it. They preach and demand that other people stop drinking too. Now, the simplest way for me to kind of reference this is if you remember when you were in high school, right? Especially if you're from my generation, like graduated in the 90s. And I'm sure it continued after that, but I don't talk to a lot of high school kids very much nowadays. But when I was getting out of high school, mainly my last 3 years, and then when I went and played in a band after I graduated and everything, and at shows, you'd see all these kids with big black X on their hands, right? And they were straight edge. And I knew a lot of people that were straight edge. I have nothing against straight edge people. But there's something that straight edge people do that the people who don't like alcohol do, and the people that don't like vaping do. Now, straight edge means you don't do any of those things. You don't take medications, you don't do drugs, you don't drink, you don't do anything, right? Well, people who are anti-alcohol managed to get it banned, and the United States almost fell apart because of it. Now, what if there was a alternative to alcohol that could provide the same relief and comfort and happiness, but drastically reduce the amount of damage the alcohol does to you, and also reduce how addictive it is to you, right? So you take the really bad things like cirrhosis and liver cancer and all sorts of stuff like that, heart failure. What if you could reduce 99.9% of the harmful things that come with alcohol? It'd be a great thing, right? What about pain medication? What if you could reduce 99.9% of all the harmful things that come with pain medication? There's a new term that has been floating around, and I really like it actually. It's called harm reduction. Now, in the case of vaping, vaping is not 100% harm-free. Any vapor knows that. But the idea is the vast majority of people who vape used to smoke cigarettes. And in comparison, there is no comparison. Cigarettes are deadly for a bazillion reasons. Maybe not a bazillion, but a lot of reasons, right? They make you stink. They make you not be able to taste your food. They taste disgusting after a while, but you crave them because of all the chemicals that are in them, right? A lot of people say, and I know it's kind of become a misnomer over the past few decades, and I'm addicted to the nicotine, right? Well, it is mostly the nicotine that you're addicted to, but as I found out, as I weaned myself off of cigarettes, there's a bunch of other chemicals in there you're addicted to. It's not just the nicotine. Because people can't just go straight from cigarettes to vaping if they've been smoking a lot of cigarettes for a long time and never want to go back to cigarettes. That is a lie. Anybody who says that is full of crap. Okay, if somehow you were able to go straight from cigarettes, quit, go straight to vaping, and have no problem, dude, good for you. That's awesome. I'm not even being facetious right now. But for the majority of people who transition from cigarettes to vaping, it is a transition. For a while, you do both. And the reason is because there's a lot of other chemicals in those cigarettes that you're addicted to. So you kind of have to wean yourself off of those. Now you have the nicotine, right? Hopefully you get the right nicotine amount to be able to get off the cigarettes. And I highly suggest, if you're planning on going over to vaping, get with somebody who knows a lot about it. That was the first thing I had to do. I started out really terrible. I spent a lot of money on crap I'll never use again. But here's the thing. Straight edge people, anti-alcohol people, the thing that they do that causes more damage than it fixes is they preach and demand. Now, I know a couple really awesome straight edge people. The people that I stayed in contact with, I'm still friends with today, that were straight edge and are straight edge still to this day, are the kind of people that believe in harm reduction. Well, if you're going to do drugs, don't do a lot of drugs. It's a bad idea, right? Makes sense. If you're going to drink, drink until you feel good and stop. Don't continue drinking all night until you make a fool out of yourself and make yourself sick. It's pointless, right? And as you get older, you start to understand the massive amount of good in that logic. Doing damage to yourself intentionally and then continuing to do that damage even though you know you're doing it is dumb, right? That's what made me want to get off of cigarettes. Now, I wanted to quit like 8 years ago. But let's look at the options we have to quit. You've got nicotine patches. For some people they work, most people they don't. You've got nicotine gum, which is just as addictive as cigarettes. Nicotine lozenges, which is what I was on for at least 3 years. I couldn't kick them. So they weren't a solid out. And the fact was, when I would get stressed and I would get, just tense, I would always go back to smoking. Even if it was for a couple days. Ultimately, you end up back. So a lot of times I was doing both. I was smoking, and then I would go in the house, I'd pop a lozenge in my mouth, and that would be good for a couple hours. I get stressed again, I'd go out and smoke again. It was a catch-22. So how do we get off the cigarettes effectively and reduce the harm drastically, right? Because there's all kinds of stuff that can happen with lozenges, gum, nicotine patches, all that stuff. They're definitely a harm reducer, but they're not 100% safe, and they certainly still cause harm. In the case of the gum and the lozenges, you're putting massive amounts of sugar in your body. Now, for me, it doesn't make a difference because I have so much sugar in a day. It's ridiculous. Way more than I should ever have. But I do it. Can't lie. But then I found vaping. I had been able to transition to lozenges, could never get off. I could also not lower them. I stayed on 4 milligrams forever. I couldn't go down to 2. Because I'd eat a whole tube in a day. Gum, it doesn't work for me. Patches are a joke. I will go out and smoke a cigarette with 2 patches on my arm. It's not just the chemical addiction that gets me. It is the physical addiction. So I had to find a way to break the physical addiction. And the only thing I could come up with was vaping. Now, it wasn't easy. The transition is not super easy, but it is a lot easier than going from smoking a cigarette to popping a lozenge, or to putting a patch on your arm, or chewing gum all day long. It's a lot easier. It seems more like you're doing what you are used to doing. And that lets you take one thing down at a time. If you're used to popping a cigarette in your mouth, lighting it, smoking it, feeling the pressure in your chest from the smoke, and it kind of gives you that release, And then the nicotine kicks in, and that gives you the second release. Well, now you get to keep the nicotine, you get to keep the act of smoking, you get to keep that volume in your lungs, but everything gets better. Your lungs heal. Your heart feels better. You don't smell. And the best part is you can start working your nicotine down to 0 if you can do it. Before, I had a couple really crazy things happen in my life just recently. I was down to 3 milligrams, and I was using half and half, 3 milligrams and 0. So it's about 1.5 milligrams. Now I'm back up to 6, but it's a process. And the best part is, so I go up to 6. I still smell good. I can still taste my food. My lungs are still healing. My heart still feels good. My blood pressure is awesome. There's no lose in this situation. But now the FDA wants to regulate these. Why would I have a problem with that? Well, it's simple. This market has been unregulated, and we've seen exactly what happens when a market is able to regulate itself. 1, things have gotten safer since day one. People have been going out of their way to make a better product, a safer product, a tastier product, an awesome product, right? From the juices, to the tanks, to the drippers, to all the modifications, to the batteries. Everything is becoming more user-friendly, and it's also offering more options. So why would I have a problem with the FDA getting involved in vaping? Simple. Because the free market fixes the problems that they could possibly want to fix, and we don't have to pay for it. And we don't have to submit to ridiculous regulations and have the entire industry choked out by these regulations. There are few things left in the United States that government hasn't had a massive hand in. And because of that, the things the government has put their hand in, development has slowed drastically. The amount of people being able to get into the industry is practically nil. And we're left with a subpar product because nobody can move any farther forward. Look at cars, for example, right? Turn of the century, cars were huge. Early 1900s, cars were huge, right? There was manufacturer after manufacturer after manufacturer popping up. All the way up to the 80s. Car manufacturers, one after another are popping up, and they're making better and better and better cars, and they're safer and they're faster and they're getting better gas mileage, they're more affordable. And they're trying new things. They're trying to build a better product because there is a lot of competition, right? Excuse me. Well, that's kind of how vaping is now, right? Except we have, instead of hundreds or tens of companies, we have thousands of companies that are all competing with each other to make a better, safer product. A product that's more user-friendly for people who aren't tech savvy. A lot of people want a product where they can pick it up, push a button, and it does its job. That's awesome. Some people, like myself, like to have a lot of options, like the technology involved. And we like to have a lot more to our gear. And for that reason, they're making better gear for people like me, who are huge into technology and want something good to go with what we have. So, this industry has regulated itself. It has intentionally made itself safer, more affordable, healthier, without any government intervention. The free market has demanded it, that things be awesome. And the companies that make the mods, the tanks, everything, have responded and said, yes, not only will I make it more awesome, not only will I give you more features, but I'll also make it more affordable. Now think about this, okay? Hold on, I'm gonna take a little vape. Now think about this, right? What other industry can you remember in your lifetime that was able to course correct the entire industry with the free market? Companies agree to do things the right way to make things better, and they compete with each other, but they also work with each other. Somebody develops the chip, somebody develops the battery system, somebody develops the actual box, somebody develops the tanks and the connectors and the coils and the cotton and everything, right? So all those guys are working on the tech. Then you got this group of guys over here, and these guys are making the juices, right? The stuff that's inside here. Now, what happens with the juices, right? Because that's really what the FDA would consider the dangerous stuff, right? Because this, I mean, the mod is just a battery and a heating element, right? We make them ourselves most of the time. So what is so dangerous about these guys over here, the juice makers? Well, they're worried about the chemicals that are going into the juice. And I got to be honest, when I first got involved in this, I too was concerned about it. Not concerned in a fanatical way, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I was definitely concerned because, I mean, you're inhaling it. So what's in it? Is it really better than tobacco? People have been burning tobacco for hundreds of years. What makes this safer than tobacco? So I started looking into it. And really, basic vape juices have 4 basic ingredients, and that's it. You have your vegetable glycerin, you have propylene glycol, you have nicotine, and a flavoring. That's it. What it really comes down to, and the only things that have ever really actually been dangerous, are the flavorings, right? Because we've established that propylene glycol is pretty safe. Vegetable glycerin, pretty damn safe. Nicotine, as long as you don't drink a bottle of it, it's pretty safe. If you're getting too much, you'll know, right? Headache, nausea, you'll know to stop. Especially if you've been smoking cigarettes before. But the fourth one, flavorings. This is where we've had an issue. And ironically, the free market took care of it. There's a company called Vapor Shark. Anybody who vapes knows about Vapor Shark. They started doing independent studies to find a certain chemical. Name of that chemical, I can't remember because it's really long. But it's the same chemical that causes popcorn lungs. Perfectly safe to eat, but when you inhale it, it causes problems in your respiratory system, eventually turning parts of your lungs into rock. Not good stuff, right? Well, this company realizes it's not good stuff, and that if we keep putting it in our vape juice, it's not going to help the situation. It may make things a little creamier and tastier, but it's causing problems with people's respiratory systems. So we have to eliminate it from the batches, right? So since we don't do the regulating, hand on the desk, you will take this out. No. The companies got together and said, look, this is bad stuff. It's not necessary. We can get rid of it, and we can still make our juices just as good, just as tasty as they were before. And so the companies got together, the good ones, and said, okay, yeah, you're right, absolutely right. If it was in my juice before, I'm going to reformulate my juice and get rid of it. And a lot of companies did that, a lot. But just to make sure there was a checks and balances system in place, within the free market, mind you, this is not a government program, this is a free market issue. Vapor Shark started testing all of these juices by the major manufacturers and then the minor manufacturers, and they just keep going. And they test the juices for these chemicals, the chemicals that are known to cause a problem with your respiratory system. They could cause a problem. And the people that they found had it, they told them, hey, you have it, you need to get rid of it. And then they made a nice handy cheat sheet for all the purchasers to look at and say, okay, this juice, even though I like it, has a lot of that stuff in it. I shouldn't be vaping it. Free market solution. It didn't need government intervention to fix it. We fixed it ourselves. People stopped buying the stuff that had that stuff in it, and the companies realized we can't keep selling it. because people won't buy it anymore. Free market solutions to problems that may or may not exist. They made this mod. It is incredibly simple, but incredibly awesome. Last month, my mother got diagnosed with lung cancer. It spread to her lymph nodes. It's rated at 3A. She had a surgery. They removed most of it. They couldn't get the cancer near her heart. So now she's doing chemo and radiation at the same time to try to beat this cancer. Cancer that was more than likely caused by cigarettes. Now, I'm not going to sit here and hate on tobacco companies because you know what? People have a choice. My mother chose to smoke cigarettes. She chose to, even knowing that it was going to make her sick. She chose to do it anyway. And she knows that. And she has to live with that. But as soon as we found out that there may be an issue, the first thing I did was said, Mom, I'm buying you a vape. You're going to start vaping. And she threw a fit and didn't want to do it. She doesn't want to change. She never wants to change. But she started. And like I said, it's a transition at first. It doesn't just all happen all at once. It's a process. But every time I talk to her now, she tells me how much better she's doing, that she's coming off the cigarettes. She was smoking 2 packs a day. And now she's down to less than half a pack. And she's vaping the rest of the time. And she enjoys it. So, why do we need regulation? This stuff is saving people's lives. It could potentially save my mother's. I'm sure it has saved mine. And it's going to save a lot more people's lives. But you've got a bunch of people, do-gooders, I like to call them, they want to complain about everything. They want to complain that somebody is blowing vapor into the air and they're not a fan of it. So I want to talk to you people specifically. Seriously, I want to talk to them specifically. And if you know anybody that is like that, that's anti-vaping, please send them this video so they can hear what I'm about to say. I don't care what offends you. I don't care. All the other vapors shouldn't care either. It's not about a lifestyle. It's about harm reduction. These things are saving our lives because we're addicted to something and we can't stop. Okay? If there were a bunch of fat people that couldn't lose weight, would you try to ban diet meals because you didn't like see them in a grocery store? Because that does about as much damage to you as a vape does. It does no damage to you. This isn't about you. It's about us. We don't need regulation on something that's saving lives every day. Think about how many people a day die from lung cancer from smoking cigarettes. And now think, if you could cut that number by 90% just by having people switch to these, how much of a difference that would make. Quality of life, everything. It's not about you. It's about us. So please, stop. Get over it. It's not fair to people who are seriously trying to help themselves, to better themselves, to get out of something that has consumed them. Because if you've never smoked cigarettes, you don't understand how consuming it is. It is literally the most important thing in your entire life. I promise you. If you have a choice between going to help somebody who's having a hard time and stopping to get a pack of cigarettes first, you're always going to stop to get a pack of cigarettes. You're not going to go deal with something because you don't have cigarettes. If you run out of cigarettes at 7 o'clock at night, guaranteed you're going up to the gas station to pick some up before you go to bed. It consumes you. And now somebody makes a product that can get you away from that world, that idea. Why would you try to ban it? Why would you try to get rid of it or regulate it or anything else? It's not about you. I don't care if you don't like vapor in the air. There's vapor in the air right now. There's vapor outside, there's vapor inside. You look up and you see those big things in the sky and they kind of look like cotton balls and they float around. Those are clouds. That's the same thing that comes out. I'm sorry. But I don't care that it hurts your feelings. I don't care that it offends you. I care that I'm getting healthier and other people are getting healthier because they're dropping the smokes and going with the vapes. So please, get over it. Now, for the people that are into government regulation of every little thing, let me try to make something clear to you. Anything the government has decided it was going to control or regulate, it has done more damage to. The government does not regulate things because they want them to make it better. They regulate things because they want to have control. Now you look at the USDA, right? How much of our food do you think the USDA and the FDA monitor? How much do you think they check? Less than 1%. Less than 0.1% of all food that moves in and out of this country. Less than 0.1%. They are more concerned with having control than they are with people actually being healthy. And if you pay any attention at all, you would know this. I wouldn't have to tell you. And last but not least, okay, for these people that keep passing all these petitions, and I'm talking about actual government leaders too, people that keep passing these petitions to grandfather all of the equipment that was made prior to this regulation, stop. I'll never sign it. Because here's the thing. A lot of people that vape come from different backgrounds, right? They're not all conservative Republicans that are pro-Second Amendment and everything else. These are people from all different walks of life, all different religions, all different political backgrounds, incomes, everything. Completely varied. So some people aren't used to having to fight for things, right? As a conservative, I'm pretty used to having to fight for rights I already have, which is ridiculous. You should never have to fight for your rights that you already have. They were already guaranteed to you. But we've gotten really good at fighting for our rights and not giving them up. And the first thing you have to know about fighting for your rights is that you don't start making deals. That's off the table. If you don't want your stuff regulated, you don't say, hey, could you not regulate stuff that's already here? No, you say, don't regulate it. There's no point. You'll do no good. There's nothing positive that could come out of you regulating what I vape. Nothing. So, I'm not into letting the government regulate things they don't need to regulate. We've already got it under control. We've got an amazing system built within the free market that takes care of all the issues they could possibly have with vaping. So, guys, if you see these petitions floating around and somebody's like, hey dude, sign this petition so you can keep the stuff you already have. Law. Hopefully you know how law works, right? If you already have it, the only way it wouldn't be legal is if they came and got it from you. Otherwise, it's grandfathered anyway. But for people who enjoy what they have and are excited about what could come in the future, because we see the hints about what's coming in the future all the time, right? They're always showing us previews of what's next and what's big. And I remember when the DNA 200 wasn't even out yet, and they were showing like what the DNA 200 could do, right? On the fly temp control, instant ramp up, and everything else. Fully programmable for every coil you use. Freaking awesome. Now, had they done this regulation 6 months ago, the DNA 200 would never exist. Would never exist. Because the companies would be forbode from making new mods. Everybody would have to go to a government-approved e-cigarette. It looks like a cigarette, but it's not. Who likes those things? I don't like those things. Maybe you like them. That's your business. But if we're going to fight for a right, we need to actually fight for the right. And the right is to choose what we want to do, right? That's it. We have that right. And I have the right to tell you, stop signing these stupid agreements saying, well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to regulate it, just can I have my stuff still? How about we all have our stuff, and we have the stuff that could be created in the future, and then the stuff past that, and we can pick whatever juice we want, and whatever nicotine, and whatever PG and VG, and we can do all of it. Because we're not idiots. We should be able to pick what we put in our body, right? If you want to go and eat 100 McDonald's cheeseburgers every day, somebody's going to think you're batshit crazy, but you can do it. It's not against the law. Way more damaging than vape. Way more detrimental to the people around you than vape. Stop trying to barter for your rights. Just demand them. It works perfectly fine. It's worked for Second Amendment advocates for a very long time. If you stop giving in and take a stand, they can't push you. They work for us. We don't work for them. We don't subject ourselves to them. They work for us. They get paid with our tax money. There's only so far they can go without our approval. So if you have friends that don't vape, that are anti-vaping, talk to them. Show them this video. If you have friends that are pro-vaping and don't vape, awesome. Once again, talk to them. Get them to talk to their friends. Show them this video. And if you have friends that vape, talk to them. Show them this video. So we all get on the same page. I'm telling you. We need to win hearts and minds. We don't do that by offering to sacrifice everything we believe in so we can keep the mods we already have. I want to see what comes out in the future. In the future beyond that. I want to see how far this industry takes it and how awesome it becomes. But the only way we will ever get to see how awesome this industry becomes is if we keep it regulated by the free market, not by the government. This is a requirement, and we have to do it together. So stand with me, and let's stop this before it's too late. And before we're stuck with little crappy e-cigs that are well regulated, and they're taxed, just like tobacco, even though there's no tobacco in here. You tell me who's greasing whose palms here. I ain't getting no money to talk about this. I just want to be able to vape what I want to vape, when I want to vape it, and how. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore for a reason. So until next time, guys, please, if you like this video, thumbs it up, subscribe, pass this thing along. Let people know that this isn't a joke. This is serious, and we need to take it seriously. And we need to fight it the way it's supposed to be fought. Not by conceding, not by meeting in the middle and shaking hands. We don't want the middle. We want, whatever we can afford. We want companies to regulate these. We want companies to make better ones. We want companies to continue to improve and make more awesome stuff. But the only way we're going to get it is if we keep government out of it. Otherwise, we end up with a e-cig, a crappy e-cig, like one of those, I'm trying to remember the name of that one. The View or whatever. You end up with one of those with a standard flavor cartridge, and you end up with a $4 tax stamp on it. And there you go. Now you're paying twice as much for an inferior product that the government said was fine for you. So until next time, I'm Gary Green. Guys, seriously, like, follow, subscribe, pass this video on, let people know. God bless you guys.